News Talk 610 AM and 102.1 FM. KVNU.
KVNU News Time is 4:05. I'm Bill Walter with this news update brought to you by Logan Dental Associates. Well, the new year has already come with a few surprises to residents in northern Utah as a series of minor earthquakes have been recorded during the first few days of 2023. The latest and strongest was reported just a little over an hour ago. According to officials with the University of Utah Seismograph Station, the latest quake occurred at 2:44 p.m., just over 4 miles southwest of Amalga. According to officials, the quake had a magnitude of 3.1 with a fairly weak to light impact throughout Cache Valley, but it was felt by many residents. While the quake may have been classified as minor, it does get people's attention, and officials at the U.S. Geological Survey reports they received more than 100 reports from different citizens who felt the quake. A majority of those residents were in the North Logan and Hyde Park communities. The first quake was reported Monday morning just after 6:30 a.m. That earthquake had a magnitude of 2.56 and was located near Benson. Later that night, last night, a larger quake was reported after 10:50 p.m., just 5 miles west of Hyde Park. That earthquake had a magnitude of 2.9 with a fairly weak to light impact. Several aftershocks have also been reported in the same areas. Although the quakes have jolted many people, no injuries or damage have been reported. KVNU News Time is 4:06. KVNU weather for tonight, mostly cloudy skies. Looks like hopefully we're done with the snow showers. And then partly sunny is the forecast for tomorrow, high around 30. Slight chance of snow showers Wednesday night, and then rain and snow likely in the afternoon Thursday. Accumulations possible, high around 40. It's been to 32. It's 30 degrees right now at KVNU. Cache Valley Hearing and Audiology can help bring back the sounds that you've been missing. Schedule a free hearing evaluation with Dr. Paul Danes at Cache Valley Hearing and Audiology.
My name is Dr. Brandon Preby, and I love being a dentist. I work with Drs. Curtis Taylor, Anthony Larson, and Paul Harris. When people ask where our office is, I actually have two answers. First, I spend part of the week at Logan Dental Associates, and then second, I spend the other part at Cherry Creek Dental in Richmond. Both locations are a full-service dental office and can take care of everyone in the family. Call or go online and make your appointment with the offices most convenient for you. Logan Dental Associates in Logan or Cherry Creek Dental in Richmond.
KVNU News Time is 4:08. 4 people experienced an unforgettable start to 2023 when they were snowmobiling through Wasatch County Sunday afternoon and reportedly became buried alive in the freshly fallen snow. Representatives of Wasatch County Search and Rescue said crews were dispatched to the Strawberry River area shortly before 3:30 p.m. on alerts of 4 stranded snowmobilers. The group had reportedly been trying to dig themselves out of the snow for several hours after becoming trapped. Upon arrival, authorities said rescue crews were able to assist the 4 snowmobilers and transport them to the trailhead. The 4 recreationists were reportedly in stable condition. No injuries were reported. And Ken Block, a motorsports icon known for his stunt driving and for co-founding the action sports apparel brand DC Shoes, died on Monday in a snowmobiling accident near his home in Utah. The 55-year-old Block was riding a snowmobile on a steep slope when the snowmobile upended, landing on top of him, according to the Wasatch County Sheriff's Office. The incident occurred in the Uinta Wasatch Cache National Forest. He was pronounced dead at the scene. Block, who grew up in Southern California, was a co-founder of DC Shoes, a manufacturer of skateboarding and snowboarding shoes and apparel that in 2004 was purchased by Quicksilver for $84 million. Afterward, he rose to fame as a rally car driver, and in 2005 was awarded Rally America's Rookie of the Year honors. He won multiple medals at the X Games and also competed in other action sports, including motocross, snowboarding, and skateboarding. KVNU News Time is 4:10. For more details on these and other stories, visit CashValleyDaily.com.
The latest news 24/7. News Talk KVNU 610 AM and 102.1 FM.
There's just so many sounds that make the holidays great. The laughter and the warm conversations held with family and friends. Kids softly giggle in the background as we gather at Grandma's house on Christmas Eve. Don't miss a moment of this holiday season. Come into Cache Valley Hearing and Audiology to receive a free hearing exam. Dr. Daines has years of experience and expertise, so give him a call at 435-753-4327. That's 753-HEAR, and have a Merry Christmas season and Happy Holidays.
Turning my pain into purpose is pretty much what I have done to start this foundation.
In August 2020, after the death of George Floyd, Bridget Floyd and other family members established the George Floyd Memorial Foundation in support of the Black community.
It's going to take more than just us as a foundation. It's going to take the community, the world, to make a change.
Fight for racial justice for the Black community. Learn how at lovehasnolabels.com. Brought to you by Love Has No Labels and the Ad Council.
In honor of all those we've lost to cancer and those still fighting and thriving, like basketball analyst and cancer champion Dick Vitale.
I want to beat cancer. I'm going to beat it. That's no doubt in my mind. I'm going to win this battle.
Defeating cancer will take all of us. Join our team to help fund game-changing research that saves lives. At the V Foundation, V is for victory over cancer. V is for victory over the odds. V is for victory over health disparities, victory over setbacks, victory over the unknown. V is for victory over giving up.
Don't give up. Don't ever give up.
Join the V Foundation team and help save lives.
Cancer can take away all my physical abilities. It cannot touch my mind, it cannot touch my heart, and it cannot touch my soul.
Join our team in the fight against cancer at V.org.
For the people.
We are waiting with bated breath for news from the Cache Republican Party meeting an executive committee tonight.
With Jason Williams.
And I'm really excited about this next segment. We have two guests here in studio. We're going to talk about something that we've talked about many times here on the show, but from a bit of a different angle.
Weekday afternoons from 4 till 6 on News Talk KVNU, 610 AM and 102 FM.
Welcome to KVNU's For the People, our first full show of the year. I'm Jason Williams, Bill Walter here in the studio as well.
It is 2023.
Happy 2023, everyone. And man, what an opening weekend for the year as far as the snowpack, quite a bit of additional snow.
Yeah, and more storms around the horizon. They're just loaded up and waiting.
Yeah. Some parts of the state currently at this point sitting at more than 200% of average. Of course, we've still got at least 3 months, in Utah usually 4, of the official snowpack building season. So if this shuts off and we see very little January, February, March, and April, we could still be in trouble. But this is definitely a good sign. Governor Cox took to the airwaves over the weekend, Twitter. He took to Twitter over the weekend and talked a little bit about this on his personal account. He said...
So he sent a muskie.
Yeah, that's right.
That's the new name for tweets. They're muskies.
Muskies. It was a very... frank conversation with the governor. which, it's interesting. A quick aside on this. Elected officials are coached against this for the most part. And I respect our governor for doing it, but I've actually been in a room when a training was being given to elected officials. This was a long time ago. Social media wasn't so prominent then, but it was around. And the recommendation was, don't do anything, and you can see why, but don't do anything that doesn't run through your comms team. And the reason for that is, it's pretty easy to say something dumb. We all do it every day, but we're not the governor or a senator or a House representative or the president. We can't make national headlines if we say something dumb at work or at the convenience store to some stranger, but we've all done it. So a lot of times elected officials are advised and even coached against this type of thing. Governor Cox, though, has maintained both his official communications through the Governor Cox account on Twitter and Instagram and the Governor Spencer J. Cox Facebook profile. But he's also maintained his personal Spencer Cox accounts as well. And he's always been pretty active on Twitter, even back into his House lawmaker days before being lieutenant governor. And so he took to that account over the weekend and he said, people I see are asking a lot of questions about this. Are we out of the woods when it comes to the drought? Has the drought cycle ended? And what does that mean as far as the upcoming legislative session and the hundreds of millions of dollars that have basically at this point been earmarked for drought preventative measures and shoring up the Great Salt Lake, restoring it to at least some of its former glory? It'll never be what it once was. Population growth has just already surpassed that, but it could be rescued, and the state plans to spend a lot of taxpayer dollars trying to do so for good reason. The governor said yes and no. One, like I just said, all of the snow is a very good sign. It means that there's a lot out there compared to the last two winters, especially. But again, if we see all this now and then the figurative spigot shut off between now and April, then we're back in trouble again because, when you hear something like, nearly 200% of average for snowpack, that's so far. We're 200% of the average snowpack for this time of the year. That's really good. That means there's a lot out there. And that helps, absolutely, the governor said. But if no more comes, that's a problem. If very little comes, that's a problem. Even if this holds up and we stay above average, this is a slow recovery process. 2 years of a very extreme drought means there's a lot of dryness out there. And so a lot of the lakes, for example, that are 20, 30 feet below their normal levels, that could take, 3, 4, 5 years. Some are prognosticating that Lake Powell may not see a return to the levels people expect to see there for 10 years. Even if the drought were to end right now, it takes that long because once things, get so dry, of course, they have to be saturated again. So all the snowpack melting off in the spring and summer this year, we're going to see rivers, if the snowpack holds up and stays above average through the rest of the winter, we're going to see rivers, overflowing their banks. But it takes a few years for all that water to get back in the ground. Where it was, and that means those rivers are those levels are going to come down pretty quick as things warm up. So the governor basically said no, we're not out of the woods yet. This is a really good sign. It does mean this is probably a sign that we won't see this summer. The governor said, any excessive restrictions on water use outside of the current call to conserve more. He said it's probably a good sign that we won't have any city systems, for example, completely running dry, just with what we have now. But does it mean we're out of the woods on the drought? He said absolutely not. We've got a lot of work to do, and the state plans to discuss this in the legislative session. Lawmakers will be discussing additional monies for additional conservation methods. One that I hope they beef up and there is actually a bill for this. The future of the bill, I make no predictions. It hasn't had much of a future when it's come up before, but this year might be different. But there is a bill to, I know it's Utah. I know we're supposed to hate this type of thing, but it's basically some redistribution of wealth to get a lot of the agricultural industry up to speed when it comes to newer technology and newer methods of irrigation. And again, as we discussed a lot throughout the last year, nearly 80% of our water use here in Utah still goes to agriculture, and we should all be okay with that changing a lot. But none of us should be okay with the idea of getting that down to like 10, 20%, because what that means is there's very little agriculture going on. The reason 80% of our water use is going to agriculture here in Utah, well, two reasons. One, it's a desert state, not the greatest place to grow anything. And two, it is agriculture still a huge part of our culture, our economy, our lifestyle, and I don't want that to change too much. The governor addressed that as well in his Twitter thread over the weekend. He said, that's something that he grew up in agriculture. His family still runs a farm in I believe the Gunnison area, somewhere outside of there. It's a pretty big ranch, actually, and he said that has been our way of life. It's not something I'd like to see change, not just for nostalgia, but because this is what we know. Many of my family members, I don't know what they would do if we couldn't farm. And I think there are still many, many Utahns in that situation. But even outside of that, if you have, I know a lot of folks here in Cache Valley, where it's still cheap enough to do this, have those backyard pets that livestock basically, but it's just a pet. Imagine how expensive hay is going to be when you have to have it trucked in from northern Idaho or Washington. So this is. Those are, for some, I guess, maybe trivial examples. I think we can do both. And the governor talked about that as well. He said, I think we can do this. I think we can manage water and population and growth and environmental sustainability and, if not turning around, at least slowly halting our contribution to air pollution and climate change. And at the same time, still maintain many of these ways of life that for many people, I would say for everyone, even if it's only in the back of your mind, unrecognized and only there subconsciously, it's part of life in Utah. So the legislature is going to be taking up a potential hundreds of millions of dollars in grants that can be applied in various ways. And some of that, this bill that was unveiled just before the weekend, I've linked to it on our Facebook page, is going to go directly to, there's two proposals floating around this. One is literally just to pay farmers to buy new equipment, irrigation equipment, to stop using the older systems that leak a lot, that aren't as efficient in how they distribute water in the first place, and adopt some of these newer, higher tech systems that can be managed well and give you a lot more control over how much and when you're watering. With a lot more ease, so it doesn't break anyone's back. No one has to go out and hire 12 new hands to move irrigation systems at night. There are systems that can do that, but they're expensive. And upgrading isn't something that is in most family farm budgets. Some of the big corporate-owned farms can afford to and have already, but those smaller family-owned farms, which are the more plentiful form of agriculture in Utah, they don't have 10 grand sitting aside, just, burning a hole. So the state is thinking of a granting process to update those systems. Another proposal is to literally just provide a significant tax incentive to get them to do so, rather than a direct grant where you're actually handing out checks to get farmers to do this. It's an offset of a tax break, a significant tax break, which still costs the state money, but on the back end, and it is a slower process. So the debate will be which is going to generate the quickest response. So if you'd like to see what the governor had to say about all this, I've linked to it on our Facebook page, and we'll be back with your headlines and smooth jazz first of the year right after this.
You're in the market to buy a home and dreaming of a new home you can fill with new memories, but homes just aren't in your budget. Or are they? Visionary Homes wants you to know you don't have to buy a used home. Buy new. Buy now with Visionary Homes. As a trusted award-winning Utah home builder, Visionary Homes understands that your home is the center of your life, bringing friends and family together, creating memories you'll cherish forever. Buy new. Buy now. VisionaryHomes.com.
Visionary Homes. This is Logan City Police Chief Gary Jensen. Scammers are continuing to target people in the Cache Valley. Fraudsters often threaten with arrest, withholding medical care for loved ones, or offer to sell or purchase items at discounted or inflated prices. Many of these scams often involve third-party gift cards or other money-exchanging services. If you receive an offer or are threatened like this with immediate punishment unless you comply, hang up and call the police to report it. Please do not become a victim.
St. Joseph's Indian School is much more than a school for Native American children.
It's like a family. Classes are fun here. I am learning about my culture.
Since 1927, St. Joseph's Indian School has provided children the education, health care, and support they need to succeed. To help give our kids brighter futures, learn more at stjo.org today.
Welcome back to KVN News for the People. Starting the show off here talking about the plentiful snow over the weekend. I'm a little tired. I hesitate to complain about this considering the last two summers and the drought. But I did get, when I saw this morning that I was going to have to do just a little bit more snow shoveling. Luckily, this was snow shoveling and not actual, snow blow. I was doing what they call snow moving over the weekend, which is you're not really you're using a snow blower, but you're not really snow blowing so much as you were just snow moving because you felt like so much to dig out.
Like you were driving one of the county plows.
Oh, man. It was just, yeah. And it was deep enough. I have some areas that usually I don't. If I've done a pass or two in previous storms, I don't care if the snow builds up there. It's not a widely used gate or something like that. But this was deep enough that I had to do gates. I had to do it was a full day, and then and then another one after that, and then this morning I woke up. It was just a skiff. Only needed a shovel, but I was still like, really?
Yeah.
Come on. But then I remind myself, we need this. Some of the snowpack, though, the snowpack in general is impressive, but some of the totals just in the last 3 days in parts of Utah, 52 inches, I think it was, at one of the resorts. I forget which one, or maybe it was one of the peaks.
Was it Solitude?
I can't remember. It wasn't here. It wasn't Beaver. I know that. But yeah, 52 inches in 3 days. That is a lot of snow, on top of a lot of snow already being out there. So this is all really good news. Again, the governor, though, over the weekend on his personal Twitter account saying, don't breathe a sigh yet on the drought. This is a good sign. This eases some of the pain. This puts us in a better situation heading into at least the upcoming immediate year. But the drought is still an issue. It's been dry for so long. This water will, if no more comes in, this water will be gone very soon. We've got a couple of callers here wanting to respond. The first caller was our friend Jeff. He couldn't stick around to go on air. Jeff, good to hear from you. Always welcome to call. And Jeff reminded that, another concern with this that we need to be prepared for, and the state's going to have to earmark some money for, although Utah sort of likes to kind of depend more on the federal government for this type of aid. But this is stacking up to be, if it holds out, very good as far as the drought goes, but it is stacking up to be a lot of green, tall grass that dries out very quickly. Hopefully not until the end of July, but it has been June the last couple of years. And so wildfire season could be a little worse and more expensive for taxpayers and more risky. So, it is a shell game to some extent when it comes to taxpayer dollars, but the governor said this does ease the pressure a little bit, although the state is still looking at spending some significant money to encourage farmers to update technology and use more efficient, smarter watering systems. encourage residents through granting processes or tax breaks. Again, that'll be the debate, which of those it is and where it goes. But that's being considered as well, beefing up the incentives for people to redo their yards in a way that requires less water, especially in the southern part of the state. This wasn't always a thing in St. George, has always been mind-boggling to me, but thankfully the light bulbs finally got on there. So we'll see where all this goes. And we do have Mitch on the line, wants to weigh in. Mitch, go ahead.
Yeah, well, we're talking about things that we can do to help the farmers succeed. Why alfalfa? Why not grass hay?
I mean, it's a legitimate question.
And I can give you part of the answer.
It's water demanding.
It has to do with nitrogen in the ground and not needing to buy fertilizer.
That's part of it, I think.
Big chunk of it.
Yeah.
But part of it also is what we don't talk about is what do we do with like stubble from grass hay and stuff like that. And the reality is Utah used to have Lake Bonneville covering it, not plant life. So our deep tillage, that's the ability of the water to hold on to, or the ground to hold on to water at the surface level where the plants grow, isn't there.
Sure. It's way down.
The way to fix that is to till more plants into the ground.
Sure.
And
mulch,
we're not doing
basically,
that with
right?
alfalfa. Nobody does that with alfalfa.
Yeah, alfalfa is more of a, semi-permanent, but yeah, it's... Mitch, there was an interesting Salt Lake Tribune article on this, not really trying to answer that question, why alfalfa, because honestly, at face value, alfalfa is one of the dumbest crops to be growing in a desert. Just thinking about the water, what it requires.
I mean, you can do rotations with it and it would work better.
Sure, but then... Then you run into financial challenges. The way to make money off of alfalfa is grow as much of it as you can, harvest it as often as possible, and keep those fields healthy, right? And what that requires is oodles of water, and then, as Mitch pointed out, a way of harvesting that alfalfa that doesn't mulch. You just take from the ground, pour more water on it, take more. It dump a lot of nitrogen in, which does mean Utah in general uses a lot less chemical fertilizer than most other areas. So that's a good thing. But that it is, at face value, a dumb crop to be growing in the desert. But the Salt Lake Tribune article, though, Mitch talked a little bit about that. The trade-offs of not needing so much fertilizer, the trade-offs of, most of the alfalfa hay grown in Utah is actually sold not only outside of Utah but outside of the country right now. So I think you'll see maybe mindsets change on that. I do buy alfalfa hay every year for a little hobby farm. And I would hate to have to pay more than I already am or to have to get that in another state, selfishly. But does that mean that we should be growing as much as we... I mean, I really think there's room for a conversation here.
Well, I have a goat, eats hay, but grass hay actually does better for goats.
Sure.
Male goats especially, give them too much alfalfa, they get kidney stones.
Yeah.
For example. And a lot of other animals are better not just doing straight alfalfa.
Sure.
Well, because that's what we have, that's what we feed.
And a cow will eat anything. So
yeah, cows want silage, actually. And silage is way better crops, because you can use just about anything to make silage.
Sure.
My grandpa's a dairy farmer. I grew up farming. I'm not saying this but he rotates crops. He tills it in. He's never burned a field in my entire life as far as I remember.
Sure.
And he's up in the western area, sandy area up there, how that ground just does not hold on to water for nothing. But because he's been tilling in and rotating crops and stuff for decades, his holds on to water way better than some of his neighbors that don't do it the same way.
Yeah.
There's smarter ways to farm that might not be as profitable in the short term, but in the long term build a much better system, more robust. It's got more buffer for dilling, doesn't need as much water, maybe for the short term. I know some farmers have pointed out that when they till it under, then it pulls the nitrogen back out of the soil while it first starts breaking down that plant matter.
Yeah.
And that's true. So you might need to fertilize that first year or two.
to get it
But then
running.
as it breaks down, it starts putting all that nitrogen back if you keep it up.
Yeah.
And,
you know
rotating
who's
crops, I mean, we've been doing crop rotation as farmers in Europe from the Middle Ages.
You know who I've been thinking about a lot, Mitch, and you may, because of your area of travel, may know of this person. I won't give his name because he's never given me permission to do so, although he does do tours, if you can find him. But out in Malad, there is a younger guy that inherited a large family farm, a gigantic chunk of land. And he decided, everyone laughed, you hippie. He decided to convert everything over into something that's known as permaculture farming. And it's complicated stuff, but a really, really superficial way to understand this is you have these rows of straw bales that serve as mulch and growing compost for tomato plants and things like that. But then you have pigs running through there, and then you have a series of fruit trees. But then the way you go about harvesting is where it's kind of key. For example, when you harvest the fruit trees, you only harvest the middle. You leave the lower part to fall for the pigs and the top part for the birds. And then you leave, and there are all kinds of little processes like that. And what ends up happening, it takes a few years, but what ends up happening is you have this drought-resistant, 100% self-sustaining farm that you have to do a minimum maintenance on. You can't grow everything, but you can grow a lot. And so that guy, I think, is out there laughing right now because he probably just sailed through the drought like it was nothing. Because he'd done his 5-6 years of getting that permaculture farm up and running out there in Malad. I'm not saying we need to go that far, but I think we need to start thinking about some of these things because, Mitch, you said it perfectly, and I think a way for everyone to think about this, do we want everyone to stop growing alfalfa? Most people would probably say no. Do we need to be growing as much of it as we are? Are we growing as much of it as we are because that's what we've always done? Those are some legitimate questions faced with this awakening finally, 2 generations late, that we live in a desert, right?
And I'm worried about the fact that, how many of our farmers do it this way is because they don't know a different way.
Sure. And I think the state is going to start exploring that subtly. I think they're going to start with some education campaigns and maybe feel that out. Is there willingness to do things differently just because it's never been brought to anyone's attention before in a lot of areas of the state, especially southern Utah?
Yeah, my neighbor, beef farmer, the field right behind my house, he's always grown alfalfa on it, and it's like he wants to grow other stuff, but the water needs were too high.
Yeah.
And we talked about the tillage. Me and him had a long conversation. I mean, this is an older farmer, too.
Sure.
And we talked about it, and he's like, well, I wonder could we try switching it to grass hay and using his pasture with grass hay for a couple of years and see what happens. And he tried it, and then next thing you know, not alfalfa, it was wheat that he was growing on it. Alfalfa uses way too much water. He wanted to grow alfalfa, but he didn't have enough water rights for it. And anyway, so we talked about doing this grass hay and trying that for a while, and he figured he'd put his horses on there for pasture, and he can run them.
Oh, no, I think...
Because he's actually getting crops of grass.
Mitch, we just lost you, Mitch.
Am I here again?
Oh, there you go.
Now?
Yeah, finish that sentence.
Yeah, he's doing 4 crops or almost... It seems like he's cutting it 2 or 3, almost 4 times a year. Grass hay off of the main thing.
Sure.
Beautiful grass hay.
Yeah, I know.
He just beef cows on.
Oh, there's a couple of families out in Mendon doing that same thing, and they've gotten creative with it. One thing I will
half the water.
Well, one thing I will say is that I know it is not costly to make some of these switches, but it can mean an entirely different way of going about things. And so I've wondered myself sometimes, Mitch, if it's not just getting some different information out there. Maybe the state needs to have something like a core of experts that can go be advisors. Voluntarily, farmers can raise their hand figuratively and say, we'd like to change things. We'd like to do something differently. And then the state has some folks that can go out and look things over and say, try this and try that, like we do already with a lot of other systems. We've just never tried anything like that.
I like the idea of doing it as that, here's an idea. Try this if you want. Try it on one field. Maybe a guarantee from the state, hey, if it blows up, we'll help you eat some of the cost.
Sure. And if the state's going to
because take some of the risk out of it for them.
Yeah, and if the state's going to give you a big tax break or like you said, offer to eat some of the costs on that to do some of those experiments, I know a lot of people. I know more farmers that would say yes, at least with one chunk of their land. Don't
ask them don't tell them they've been doing everything wrong. Say, hey, here's something that might be a better fit. Let's give it a shot.
Sure.
Let's do it with you. Not tell you what to do, but let's do it with you. Let's experiment with you. Let's find out what's best on your land.
Yeah.
And that mentality makes a huge difference because if I'm a farmer and someone comes and tells me I'm doing everything wrong and I need to change, I'm going to boot them off my land.
Sure.
It's going to hurt when I kick them.
Yeah, I'm with you, Mitch. I think this is a good way to approach it. And one thing as a final thought on this before we go to the news, the best thing that has happened in the last couple of years, the silver lining of this drought, is you finally have state lawmakers that realize, the reality. It's finally hit them. The ones who are still arguing and fighting against it are kind of getting laughed off stage by their colleagues. And it's sad that it took a generation to get here. But we're here now. So I hope some of these ideas Mitch and I have been discussing and others being floated out there by lawmakers, by everyone else, I hope we're finally at a point where we can start trying some of this stuff and acknowledge that, change needs to happen. But also, as Mitch said, again, have we been doing things this way because it's the best way, or have we been doing things this way just because it's what we've always done? It's worth asking those questions if we'd like to be able to maintain a quality lifestyle here in Utah to any degree. What do you think? Mitch with some great thoughts there. Mitch, thank you. Always great to hear from you. Others, 753-5868. We'll be back right after the news with KVNU's Bill Walter.
Thank you, Jason. KVNU News Time is 4:41. This news, look at the news brought to you by Northern Steel Buildings. An employee at a Utah ski resort died after being ejected from a chairlift whose line was severed by a fallen tree amid record snowfall. Representatives of Park City Mountain said the 29-year-old resort employee fell at least 25 feet from the shortcut chairlift on Monday. 10 others who were also on the chairlift were evacuated by the ski patrol. Deirdre Walsh, the resort's vice president and chief operating officer, said that they are all deeply saddened by the tragic incident, and they will be providing support for employees as they grieve this devastating loss. The resort declined to identify the employee, but said the Summit County Sheriff was expected to release the name at a later date. The chairlift remained closed while the investigation continued today. The 28-year-old man accused of murdering 4 University of Idaho students has appeared in court in Pennsylvania where he was arrested. He made the appearance to say he will not fight extradition. ABC's Alex Stone has more.
In the courtroom, Brian Kohberger stood in a red jail uniform and shackles. He was calm and emotionless, his deep-set eyes. As he walked in, his family started crying. During the hearing, Kohberger had a clenched jaw, looking at his family a few times. He said he understood the charges of murder and burglary in Idaho and that he would voluntarily go to Idaho. As he left the courtroom, he turned to his family and mouthed the words, "I love you," as he was being escorted out. Alex Stone, ABC News.
Kohberger's attorney says that his client is eager to be exonerated and should be presumed innocent. And Utah's Cam Rising saw his dream of winning the Rose Bowl ended early due to injury for the second straight season. The junior injured his left leg during the third quarter Monday against Penn State in the 109th edition of the Granddaddy of them all. The 7th-ranked Utes trailed 21-14 when Rising was injured, but they lost their momentum after that. They ended up losing to the number 9 Nittany Lions 35-21. Utah State Aggie men's basketball on the road at Air Force tonight. Al Lewis will break it down. Look forward to the game and talk to former Aggie great Jalen Moore in the 6 o'clock hour, starting at straight up 6 o'clock tonight here on KVNU. News time is 4:44.
In the beginning of time, in a land far away, hid a material in the earth so versatile that once discovered would give way to a century of innovation. From primitive weapons to railroads to buildings that scrape the skies.
What is it? Steel. And without it, our world would look much different. Nothing is stronger or more versatile than steel. And if you want a building that'll stand the test of time, call Northern Steel Buildings at 435-677-7300 or visit northernsteelbuilding.com. That's northernsteelbuilding.com.
KVNU weather for tonight, mostly cloudy skies, low 15 to 20, partly sunny, around 30 tomorrow. Slight chance of snow showers Wednesday night, rain and snow likely by Thursday afternoon. Some accumulations possible of snow, high around 40. It's been to 32. Right now we have 29 degrees at KVNU. And again, in case you are wondering, yes, 3.1 earthquake southwest of Amalga reported at 2:44 p.m. felt by some individuals in the Cache Valley. However, no word of any injuries or damage from this fairly light quake. Weather brought to you by Northern Steel Buildings. Contact their Cache Valley team to protect what's yours at northernsteelbuilding.com. Value from concept to construction. Call 435-677-7300. For more details on these and other stories, visit CacheValleyDaily.com. Let's check Wall Street now with Edward Jones.
This is financial advisor Clayton McMurdy from Edward Jones, bringing you the daily financial market report for Tuesday, January 3rd. Markets started 2023 off on a soft note, with equities closing modestly lower, led by declines in the technology and energy sectors. Bonds, on the other hand, rose as the 10-year benchmark Treasury yield moved notably lower on the day. Gold was higher, and oil prices fell below $80 per barrel. All told, the holiday-shortened trading week kicked off with a cautious tone, despite good news from a cooler-than-expected inflation reading out of Europe, as markets remain anxious about the outlook for growth and the implications for corporate earnings. With market spending all of 2022 intensely focused on monetary policy actions, the spotlight is now squarely on the economy, as impacts of higher rates are evaluated through trends in employment and consumer spending. Tuesday's pullback in interest rates is reflective of what we believe will be the primary theme in 2023, an economic slowdown and downward trending inflation. The headliner for the week will be the December jobs report due out on Friday, which will shed fresh light on the health of the labor market. We suspect the pace of monthly job growth will slow and the unemployment rate will tick higher as we move through 2023. For this week's employment report, it's likely that the market will key in on the trend in wage growth, with some moderation needed to help further ease inflation pressures ahead. Today, equities closed lower, with the Dow was down 11 points at 33,136. The Nasdaq closed down 79 points at 10,387, and the S&P 500 closed down 15 points at 3,824. In bond markets, 10-year Treasury yields are trading at 3.77%, and in commodity markets, the price of crude oil was down $3.06 at $77.20, and the spot price of gold was up $17.70 at $1,843.90. This has been today's financial market report, brought to you by Edward Jones, member SIPC, serving individual investors with personalized attention and financial advice at 1309 North Main Street in Logan. If you would like any additional information, please call us at 435-753-0537 or stop by any of our branches here in Cache Valley.
Looking for the biggest preseason RV deals in 2023? You don't have to look hard when they're in your own backyard. During the Northern Utah RV Show, sponsored by Bish's RV, January 12th through the 14th, we're bringing the largest new and used RV show in Northern Utah history to the Golden Spike Event Center at the fairgrounds. For 3 days only, you'll find a massive selection of new and used travel trailers, fifth wheels, toy haulers, truck campers, and more, starting as low as $8,991, like on a used 2022 Viking 13-foot tent camper. We're also offering clearance finance pricing on all remaining 2022 RVs. No payments until April on approved credit. Plus, enter to win a brand new $30,000 travel trailer. No purchase necessary. Complete rules online at NorthUtahRVShow.com. Don't miss the biggest RV event in northern Utah history. January 12th through the 14th inside the Golden Spike Event Center. Open daily at 10 a.m. with free admission. Sponsored by Bish's RV. Use 2022 Viking 10 Camper VIN number 019538. SDK number 57438. Benefits price subject to prior sale. Sale price does not include tax, title, dock, surcharge, or registration. Dealer number 426B.
Welcome back to KVN News for the People. I didn't get my end of the year lists in like I like to, Bill. I'm kind of feeling a little cheated by that. We had a hectic schedule here on the show last week and the week before. Aggies. But no, it was it just there was a lot. Every show, we just had a lot going on and a lot of stuff in the news. I've been tracking this today for those who follow national politics. Ooh. Just opened a news site, and there was an ad on the side banner for a preventative to toenail fungus with a really close-up picture of a toe.
Good thing you weren't eating
Kind
at
of
the
threw
time.
threw my whole conversation off there. What was I talking about?
Not toe fungus.
This is the reason this interests me. So I'm a nerd this way. When something out of the ordinary or is being referred to as historic is about to happen, I start looking at the actual history to see, why it's getting that word. So what's happening right now is the House Republicans with a tiniest of majorities, official at this point. The new Congress is officially gavelled in. Nancy Pelosi, there's a process to this. Nancy Pelosi, the outgoing speaker, gavelled her 117th Congress out this morning in Washington, D.C., and then immediately the clerk of the House gavels in the 118th. The reason the clerk of the House does it is that there is no speaker yet. So then the votes within the majority. Now, the minority party gets to vote on this too, but they're in the minority, so they, of course, don't get a say, except this time Democrats could. They haven't monkey wrenched yet. They could. It's been really interesting to watch, mainly because something like this hasn't really happened since 1823. And that was an extreme example. In 1823, it took 133 days before there was an official Speaker of the House. And that's an interesting story. If you'd like to read it, I won't get into it. I've linked to it on our Facebook page. But that was a weird year for a lot of different reasons. It wasn't really a political fight. It was no one wanted the job, and they kept trying to force some slow-moving House representative to take the Speaker job. Different this time around. Kevin McCarthy, Republican, wants the job. Has made it known. Others have shown an interest. This big guy from Arizona, he's interesting. And Jim Jordan, although Jim Jordan says he doesn't want it, he has been giving some very, very broad speeches in support of Kevin McCarthy today, which kind of almost sound like he's actually campaigning for himself by endorsing another and campaigning for another, but he's the only one giving like election type speeches. It's been interesting, and his support's been growing. Biggs is no longer in the running at this point. He threw his support behind Jim Jordan, and Kevin McCarthy could not, in 4 rounds of voting, could not get a majority today. So the House is adjourned, and they'll take this up again tomorrow. And they do this until it's done, until there is a speaker in place. So we'll see. Democrats having not a majority, but close to half of the House still, they could. There was talk today that Democrats could walk out. If they walked out at that point, then the math changes for what a majority is. And at that point, Kevin McCarthy could easily walk away with it. And there were some suggesting they do that just to get business going, assuming Kevin McCarthy is going to be Speaker. Some this morning saying, just do it, the Democrats, just walk out. Then the percentages change or the required percentage changes if Democrats all walk out or if enough of them do. And at that point, McCarthy could easily slide into that Speaker slot. Democrats didn't. They sat it out today, 4 rounds. And I don't know if you've ever seen any of this. I don't recommend that you do. But if you've ever had the misfortune of watching a roll call vote for anything in the Utah House, in the Utah Senate, on C-SPAN, or I know people that have done it. They've gone out to tour the Capitol in Washington, D.C., and ended up being able to go into the peanut gallery there above the House floor at the Capitol, and it's not exciting stuff, especially. So what was happening today 4 times over, clerks of the House, because they got so tired they tag-teamed it, about 4 of them, but they literally, in alphabetical order, read each House representative's name and state, and the House representative shouts out by voice his or her vote. And that happened over and over and over and over today. It was, I watched about a minute and a half of it. From Utah, there were no surprises. All 4 of our House representatives, Owens, Curtis, the other guy, Stewart, and our own representative here in the 1st Congressional District, Moore, all 4 have been, through all 4 rounds, votes for Kevin McCarthy. But, it's interesting. And again, the reason it's getting the outcome of this, the Speaker of the House, for those who don't follow Congress in great detail outside of, big bills and noteworthy votes, the Speaker of the House does actually have a lot of power. And I'm not just talking about the line of succession power, succession power. It's also, Speaker of the House has a lot of direction over where party committee money goes in the next legislative campaign cycle. The Speaker of the House has a lot of direction over. The Speaker of the House can single-handedly decide by pressuring different caucuses what bills get heard and don't. The Speaker of the House can also directly negotiate with the Senate. It's a powerful position, but they could do business without one for some time. So you may see some bills come up if this goes into multiple days. I still think McCarthy has it. I think the hardliners in the far right Freedom Caucus are just kind of strutting right now. I think they want to send him a message that they could make trouble if they wanted to. And then, tomorrow I wouldn't be surprised if they back down and there's enough votes for McCarthy. I also wouldn't be surprised if there is a surprise and suddenly everyone starts throwing their votes behind, some dark horse candidate that hasn't even been mentioned yet and that this was orchestrated all along. So we'll see how this all plays out. But tomorrow, I would guess it would be done. I don't know. It's likely tomorrow this will be done. But if you want to see some very rare, even historic congressional Schadenfreude, check it out. It'll be on C-SPAN. It was all day today. We'll be back right after this.
Are you moving into a new home? You want to breathe your own dirt, not somebody else's. You should have your air ducts cleaned by the Duct Hunter to get rid of old dust, pet hair, and a variety of other people's dirt. Call today to get on the schedule for a free consultation. Call the Duct Hunter at 770-4813.
We are the Duct Hunter. Breathe better, save money, protect your home. We are the Duct Hunter.
Hi, this is Gordon Deal. Wednesday on This Morning, America's First News. The new Congress is sworn in, bringing divided government for the Biden administration. We'll have the latest on the battle for House Speaker. Also, the first month of the year means high stakes for retailers as they clear out inventory. Hear how they try to anticipate our shopping habits. And can going a month without alcohol actually improve your health? Wednesday on This Morning. America's First News. From 4 to 6 on News Talk KVNU, 610 AM and 102 FM. Your station for news and talk.
A don't watch recommendation, especially with the earthquake news the last few days. But on Netflix, there is a series on natural disasters, and one of the episodes is on volcanoes. And man, if you want to be creeped out, go ahead and watch this, and watch for the portion of the show where
they talk about Yellowstone.
They show you the thermal map of where basically where magma is getting closest to the surface. It produces a very noticeable heat signature, and man, it is just a highway of very close to the surface potential volcanoes through Yellowstone, from Montana to northern Utah. This is kind of funny, though. Check it out. This is the first time, also historic, that there have been 3 stories about earthquakes in northern Utah.